A black man gets bullied at a car dealership. Next day, he buys the company and did this.
Isaac Harper, a black billionaire, stepped out of his old Toyota Camry, patting the hood fondly before heading into the sleek, glass-fronted car dealership. The afternoon sun reflected off the luxury vehicles parked outside, a fleet of pristine sports cars, sedans, and SUVs, each a testament to the art of engineering and wealth. For Isaac, this was a dream he had been saving for. With his 13-year-old son, Malik, trailing behind, Isaac felt a rare surge of excitement. Today wasn't just about buying a car, it was about showing Malik the rewards of hard work and perseverance. Isaac had come a long way from the small apartment where he once juggled 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. Now, as the owner of a successful tech company, he was finally in a position to treat himself and share the moment with his son. The sales floor was a temple to opulence, polished floors, walls adorned with oversized posters of gleaming cars, and a faint scent of expensive cologne in the air. Isaac scanned the room, searching for a salesperson. "Excuse me," he called out to a tall man in a fitted suit who was chatting with a coworker. The man's name tag read Chad in bold letters. Chad glanced over briefly, his gaze sweeping up and down Isaac's outfit, faded jeans, a simple gray polo, and scuffed sneakers. Chad's lip curled. "Sorry, but we don't do test drives for browsers," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Isaac blinked, confused. "I'm not here to browse. I'm looking to buy." "Ha," Chad cut him off, smirking. "Listen, these cars, they're high-end. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable at a used lot down the street." Malik tugged at his dad's sleeve, whispering, "Dad, let's just go." Isaac's chest tightened. The humiliation wasn't new. He'd faced it many times before as a black man in spaces where people judged him on appearances. But hearing it in front of his son was unbearable. "I'm serious. I'm ready to buy today," Isaac said firmly, his tone steady. Chad raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "Oh, sure you are. Look, man, I'm just being honest. These cars are way out of your budget. We're talking 6 figures here." Isaac felt the heat rise in his face. "How do you know what I can afford?" Chad shrugged lazily. "I don't, but I'm a pretty good judge of character. Just saving you some time." Another employee, a younger woman with kind eyes, looked like she wanted to intervene, but Chad shot her a look, and she stayed silent. Isaac clenched his fists, swallowing his pride. "Come on, Malik," he said softly, placing a protective arm around his son's shoulders. "We don't need this." As they walked out, Chad chuckled audibly. "Told you, dreaming too big." His voice followed them out the door. The ride back home was silent except for the hum of the engine. Isaac kept his eyes on the road, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His mind raced, replaying the moment over and over. Malik sat quietly in the passenger seat, staring out the window. "Why didn't you say anything to him, Dad?" Malik finally asked, breaking the silence. His voice was a mix of frustration and confusion. Isaac exhaled, his tone calm but tinged with regret. "Sometimes, son, it's better to walk away. People like that don't deserve your energy." "But he made fun of you, of us," Malik said, his voice cracking slightly. "I hate how they treated you, Dad. It's not fair?" Isaac glanced at his son, his heart aching. "It's not fair," he agreed. "But we don't fight every battle the way they want us to. We fight smart." Malik didn't reply, but Isaac could see the disappointment on his face. That hurt more than Chad's words. That night, as Isaac sat in his home office, sipping his coffee, the humiliation still lingered. He stared at his computer screen, a tab open to the dealership's website. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He could let it go, like he had so many times before. Ignore the slight, move on, and continue focusing on his work. But then he thought of Malik, the look in his eyes as they drove home. His son had seen him disrespected, belittled. If Isaac didn't do something, what lesson was he teaching Malik? That it was okay to let people walk all over you? Isaac smiled faintly as an idea took shape. A bold, audacious idea. He opened another tab and started researching. "Let's see what it takes to buy a car dealership," he murmured to himself. The next morning, Isaac called his lawyer and his financial advisor. His tech company had been performing exceedingly well, and he had resources at his disposal. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was possible. Isaac's plan wasn't just about revenge. It was about setting an example for Malik, and for anyone who had ever been judged unfairly. He didn't just want to own the dealership. He wanted to change it from the ground up. As he finalized his calls and prepared his pitch, Isaac's confidence returned. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about showing his son that dignity and perseverance always win out in the end. Tomorrow he will walk back into that dealership. But this time he wouldn't be there to buy a car. He would be there to buy the whole business. Isaac Harper strode back into the dealership the next day, his posture confident and his steps purposeful. This time there was no Malik by his side, and his scuffed sneakers had been replaced with polished black loafers. His casual polo had given way to a crisp, tailored navy suit. He looked every bit the successful businessman he was, but today it wasn't just about appearances. Isaac had a mission. He was greeted by the same sleek, sterile showroom and the same group of employees scattered across the floor. The difference now was his mindset. He wasn't a prospective buyer anymore. He was an owner in the making. Chad was lounging near a glossy red sports car, his arms folded as he talked with another salesman. His smug grin faltered when he noticed Isaac, but he quickly masked it with a look of exaggerated politeness. Well, Chad drawled, approaching with a smirk. Back for round 2. Let me guess, you've been saving up for that used Honda Civic down the street. Isaac didn't react. He smiled calmly, his demeanor unshaken. Actually, I'd like to speak to the owner of this dealership. Is he here? Chad blinked, surprised. The owner? He doesn't just meet with anyone off the street. What's this about? It's a business matter, Isaac replied coolly, something I think he'll find very interesting. Chad snorted, clearly unconvinced. Look, buddy, the owner's a busy guy. He doesn't have time to. Is there a problem here? A new voice cut through the conversation. Isaac turned to see a middle-aged man in a sharp suit approaching them. His graying hair and confident stride made it clear this was the owner, or at least someone close to him. Good morning, Isaac said, extending his hand. I'm Isaac Harper. I'd like to discuss a potential acquisition of this dealership. The man's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Acquisition? You're serious? Isaac's steady gaze left no room for doubt. Very. Minutes later, Isaac found himself seated in a private office with Richard Lane, the dealership's current owner. The room was tastefully decorated, with framed photos of cars, awards, and plaques adorning the walls. I'll admit you've got my attention, Richard said, leaning back in his chair. But dealerships like this one don't go on the market every day. What makes you think I'd sell? Isaac smiled, his confidence unwavering. I've done my research, Mr. Lane. Your dealership has been profitable, but your overhead is high, and your customer satisfaction ratings have been slipping for years. A fresh perspective and an infusion of capital could change that. Richard raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And you think you're the guy to do it? I know I am, Isaac said without hesitation. I run a tech company that specializes in efficiency and customer experience. I have the resources and the vision to turn this dealership into a model of excellence. Richard studied him for a moment, his expression thoughtful. All right, Mr. Harper. I'll hear you out. What's your offer? Isaac leaned forward, outlining his plan with precision. He had spent the entire night preparing, and it showed. By the time he finished, Richard was nodding, clearly impressed. As they shook hands, sealing the deal in principle, Isaac couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. The paperwork would take a few weeks to finalize, but the hard part was over. Welcome to the business, Mr. Harper, Richard said. I'll announce the transition to the staff once the details are sorted. Actually, Isaac said, pausing at the door, I'd like to visit the showroom one last time before I leave. There's something I need to take care of. Isaac walked back onto the sales floor, where Chad was now chatting with another customer. Spotting Isaac, his expression soured. Back already? Chad sneered. What did the owner give you a brochure to take home? Isaac's lips twitched into a faint smile. You could say that. Before Chad could respond, Richard stepped out of the office and clapped his hands, calling the staff to attention. Everyone, listen up. I've got an announcement to make, Richard said, his voice booming. As of next month, this dealership will be under new ownership. The room buzzed with murmurs. Chad glanced between Isaac and Richard, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. Let me introduce you to your new boss, Mr. Isaac Harper, Richard continued, gesturing toward Isaac. The silence was deafening. Chad's face drained of color as realization dawned. You're the new owner? Chad stammered, his arrogance melting into shock. Isaac met his gaze calmly. That's right. Isaac's voice was measured but firm as he addressed the stunned staff. I've spent my life working hard to achieve my dreams. Yesterday, I walked in here ready to make a purchase and was treated with disrespect and prejudice. That's not how I run my businesses. Starting today, this dealership will be different. The younger woman who had tried to intervene the day before smiled faintly, relief evident on her face. "As for you," Isaac said, turning to Chad, "your behavior yesterday was unacceptable. I'll be reviewing the actions of everyone here and making changes where necessary. If you're willing to learn and adapt, you'll have a place here. If not, I'll make sure this dealership operates without you." Chad opened his mouth to protest but seemed to think better of it, his face red with embarrassment. Isaac took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He wasn't just here to prove a point. He was here to build something better. And this was just the beginning. The following weeks were a whirlwind of transformation for the dealership. Isaac Harper wasted no time asserting his vision, working day and night to reshape not just the business, but the culture within it. His first step was to hold a mandatory meeting with the entire staff. The employees filed into the showroom after hours, whispering among themselves. Most of them had no idea what to expect from their new boss, but the air was heavy with tension. Chad stood at the back, arms crossed, clearly displeased with the shakeup. In contrast, Rachel, the younger woman who had shown kindness during Isaac's first visit, sat near the front, her expression a mix of curiosity and hope. Isaac stood at the head of the room, his demeanor calm but commanding. He looked around, taking in the faces of the people who would either help him rebuild this dealership or resist him every step of the way. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady. "I know some of you are nervous about the changes happening here. Let me be clear. I didn't buy this dealership just to own another business. I bought it because I believe in potential for growth, success, and respect. That starts with how we treat each other and our customers." The room remained silent, though a few employees nodded in agreement. Isaac's gaze shifted to Chad, who was fidgeting uncomfortably. "Some of you may think this is just about money," Isaac continued. "But it's not. It's about something bigger. Yesterday, I was treated unfairly when I walked in here. If I, as a potential customer, faced that kind of disrespect, imagine how many others have walked out feeling the same way. That ends now." Chad rolled his eyes, muttering under his breath. Isaac caught it, but didn't react directly. Instead, he looked to Rachel. "Rachel," he said, surprising her, "yesterday, I noticed you tried to intervene when I was being dismissed. You showed kindness and professionalism. I appreciate that." Rachel's cheeks flushed, but she smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Harper." To everyone else, Isaac continued, "Rachel's behavior is what I expect from every employee here. Effective immediately, all staff will undergo comprehensive training on customer service and diversity. Those who refuse to comply will be let go." Chad's hand shot up, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "So what, we're all just getting lectured on how to be nice now? Is that your big plan?" Isaac smiled faintly. "My plan, Chad, is to create an environment where everyone, regardless of how they look or where they come from, feels valued. If that sounds like a problem to you, you're welcome to leave." The room went still, all eyes on Chad. His face turned red as he sank back into his chair, clearly outmatched. Isaac let the moment hang in the air before continuing. "This dealership will thrive, not just because of the cars we sell, but because of the people who work here. If you're on board, I'll support you every step of the way. If you're not, there's the door." The next few weeks brought significant changes. Isaac brought in a team of consultants to revamp operations, from sales practices to employee policies. Training sessions became a daily fixture, and every employee, from the top salesman to the janitorial staff, was required to attend. Rachel emerged as a standout. Her natural empathy and professionalism caught Isaac's attention, and he promoted her to assistant manager, much to Chad's dismay. Chad, meanwhile, struggled to adapt. His arrogance clashed with the new policies, and his sales numbers began to slip. One day, Isaac called Chad into his office for a private conversation. "Chad," Isaac said, leaning back in his chair, "I've been watching you. You're a talented salesman, but your attitude is holding you back." Chad scoffed. "With all due respect, Mr. Harper, I've been selling cars for years. I know what I'm doing. And yet your numbers are down," Isaac replied calmly. "This isn't just about selling cars anymore. It's about creating an experience that makes people want to come back. If you can't embrace that, you won't last here." Chad's bravado faltered. For the first time, he looked genuinely uncertain. I'll try," he muttered, though the words lacked conviction. Isaac nodded, his expression neutral. "Good. But remember, trying isn't enough. I need to see results." Isaac also began reaching out to the community, hosting free workshops on financial literacy and car maintenance. He partnered with local nonprofits to provide vehicles to families in need, ensuring that the dealership became a beacon of goodwill in the area. Malik often accompanied him to these events, watching with wide eyes as his father spoke to crowds and handed over keys to smiling recipients. It was a far cry from the humiliation they had faced weeks earlier, and Malik's pride in his father was evident. "You're really changing things, Dad," Malik said one evening as they drove home. "It's like you're giving people a second chance." Isaac smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "That's the goal, son. Everyone deserves a chance to succeed." Despite the progress, not everyone embraced the changes. Chad's resistance grew, culminating in a heated argument with a customer one afternoon. Isaac witnessed the scene unfold and knew it was the breaking point. Later that day, Isaac called a staff meeting. He addressed the team with his usual calm demeanor, but there was an edge to his voice. "Today, I witnessed behavior that goes against everything this dealership now stands for. As I said before, this is a place of respect and inclusivity. Unfortunately, not everyone has been willing to embrace that." Isaac's gaze fell on Chad, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Chad, I've given you multiple chances to change, but it's clear this isn't the right fit for you. Effective immediately, your employment here is terminated." The room was silent as Chad stood, his face a mix of anger and embarrassment. He didn't say a word as he walked out, slamming the door behind him. Isaac turned back to the team. "Let this be a reminder, we're building something better here. And that takes all of us." 6 months later, Isaac Harper walked through the dealership's showroom, the space almost unrecognizable from when he had first stepped in. The atmosphere buzzed with energy and positivity. Customers of all backgrounds were greeted with genuine smiles, and the staff worked seamlessly together, creating an environment of respect and professionalism. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was cultural. That afternoon, Isaac hosted a grand reopening event for the dealership. The space was adorned with sleek banners that read, "Harper Automotive, driving respect, building community." The event was open to the public, and dozens of people, customers, employees, and community members, gathered to celebrate. Isaac stood on a small stage in the center of the showroom, microphone in hand. Malik was by his side, looking proud as ever. "Thank you all for being here today," Isaac began, his voice steady but emotional. "This isn't just a business. It's a symbol of what can happen when we choose to do better, when we choose respect, growth, and accountability over division and judgment." He paused, scanning the crowd. His employees stood at the front, with Kendra and even Chad among them. 6 months ago, this dealership represented something I've spent my entire life fighting against. But today, it stands for something entirely different, and that's thanks to the hard work of this incredible team. The crowd erupted in applause, but Isaac wasn't finished. "I want to take a moment to recognize 2 people in particular. Kendra, whose empathy and leadership have been instrumental in this transformation. Thank you." Kendra blushed as the crowd cheered, her gratitude visible in her beaming smile. After the speeches and festivities, Isaac pulled Malik aside. "I have something for you," Isaac said, handing his son a small box. Malik opened it to find a set of car keys. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, what?" Isaac grinned. "It's not brand new, but it's yours. The Camry served us well, but I figured it was time for an upgrade." Malik threw his arms around his dad, his voice choked with emotion. "Thanks, Dad. This means so much." Isaac ruffled his son's hair. "You've earned it, kiddo. Just remember, this isn't just about the car. It's about what it represents: hard work, respect, and taking the high road." Later that evening, after the crowd had dispersed, Isaac stood alone in the quiet showroom, reflecting on everything that had transpired. Kendra approached him, her expression thoughtful. "It's amazing what you've done here," she said. "But I have to ask, why didn't you just fire everyone who treated you badly that first day?" Isaac smiled, his eyes thoughtful. "Because firing them wouldn't have changed anything. It's easy to punish people for their mistakes, but it's harder and more meaningful to help them grow." Kendra nodded, her admiration for Isaac evident. "You're a good man, Mr. Harper." "Thank you," Isaac replied. "But this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more to do." In the weeks that followed, Harper Automotive became a symbol of excellence and inclusivity in the community. The dealership's reputation soared, attracting customers and employees who valued its new ethos. Isaac, meanwhile, expanded his vision beyond the dealership. He partnered with local organizations to provide mentorship programs for young people, financial literacy workshops, and initiatives to support underprivileged families. One evening, as Isaac and Malik drove past the dealership in their new family car, Malik turned to his father. "You really changed everything, didn't you?" Malik said, his voice filled with pride. Isaac smiled, his heart full. We did, son, we did. And with that, they drove into the future, ready to build something even greater together.